Hello 7th grade, and welcome to my house. I have set up a little studio for myself with a computer and a couple cameras, and hopefully I'll be able to teach you pretty effectively from here. And I wanted to give a shot at doing a video lecture slideshow recording thingy on the circulatory system. If you remember way back, well, for me it would be last week on Friday, the day I was absent, you were supposed to read through the notes on the section on the circulatory system and take notes on it and answer a few questions as well. And so I thought that just so that you could hear me teach you about it as well, we could record a little video here. It would also serve as a nice test run of all of my technology that I am trying to learn how to use. So please be patient if there are any technical difficulties, but I think that I have things set up and they should work pretty well right now. So, this is the circulatory system, and I plan for you to see this video on Monday, March 23rd. So, if you remember back to our first day of class, when we were talking about comparing life to a city, how a living thing is similar to a city, one of the things that we noted was that cities need some sort of transportation. They need to be able to get materials and people and all sorts of stuff from one end of the city to the other end of the city. And human bodies are very similar. We have to transport things throughout our body. Things such as oxygen and waste and sugar and food and energy, all that stuff. We need to get it from one location to another. So if you think in terms of a city, that can help you understand the purpose of the circulatory system. The circulatory system is the transportation system of your body. And several of the key things that it transports are products from your digestive system, which would be the nutrients and sugars and other molecules that you would need in your body. Products from your respiratory system, which, as we talked about, you're trying to get oxygen to your body. It also transports waste from your cells. So as your cells are using up nutrients and burning the energy, and they're using oxygen to do all that, they're going to be producing waste, and the blood can carry the waste out of the body. So if you remember when we were talking about the urinary system, your kidneys actually filter your blood. So they take some of that waste out, and it goes into your urine then. If you remember also, with the respiratory system, we exhale carbon dioxide and water. That's CO2 and H2O. So that is just kind of dissolved in your blood, and when you exhale it, it comes out, and it's brought to your lungs through your blood. So your blood is kind of the main fluid. It's the big player in your circulatory system. It is a fluid, so it's a liquid that is specially designed by God to carry all of these things throughout your body. So let's talk about what blood is made of. It is not a single substance or a single type of thing, but it has several different parts that make it up. And most of the blood is made of this fluid called plasma. Now, plasma is kind of like, you can think of it as the water that everything is in. It is just this fluid there, and it can dissolve several substances like carbon dioxide and such. And it also houses other things like the blood cells live inside the plasma. But I think it's about 60% of your blood is made of plasma, so most of your blood is just this fluid. But then also, of course, we have red blood cells, and this is what we're probably most familiar with in our blood. And their main role is to carry oxygen from your lungs to the cells in your body. And they are very plentiful, as you probably saw from the microscope activity. If you look at a blood smear under the microscope, you see mostly red blood cells. And that's because we need to get a lot of oxygen to all our cells to keep them working properly. But we also have white blood cells, which you were able to see in the microscope activity as well. Now, the white blood cells in the activity looked purple, I think because they were stained. And there are several different kinds of white blood cells, but their overall general purpose is to fight germs and to keep you healthy. And so when we talk about our immune system, we'll talk a little more about different types of white blood cells. Your blood also has platelets. And if you've ever cut yourself, which I'm sure all of you have at some point in your life, we don't just keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and run out of blood and die. That'd be very unfortunate. God gave us a very nice system of blood clotting. So if I fall down while I'm riding my roller skates and skid my knee because I wasn't wearing knee pads. Within even just a matter of minutes, it'll start to clot up and I'll get a scab covering the wound. And that's what the platelets are doing. When they sense an area of the blood vessels that have been disturbed or they're damaged, they'll actually clot up to stop blood from leaving, to stop the loss of blood there. And so that's what your scabs are made of, is your platelets. Okay, so let's talk about the heart. The heart is the pump of the circulatory system. You have all this blood in your body, but if it's not moving, it's not going to do any good for transporting anything. So it needs to be constantly flowing throughout your body so that it can keep moving things. It's almost like a conveyor belt where it can pick things up on one end of the body and move it to the other end of the body. And if it's not moving, it's not going to do any good. So, the heart pumps blood through the body. Your heart is divided into two sides, a right side and a left side, and each of them kind of function as their own separate pump. The right side of your heart pumps blood to your lungs, and that's important because by your blood going to your lungs, you're able to get rid of carbon dioxide and water, and your lungs are able to provide your blood with oxygen then. And then after it goes to the lungs, it returns to your heart and goes to the left side of your heart. And from the left side, your heart will pump it to the rest of the body. So the right side pumps blood to the lungs, and the left side of the heart pumps blood to the rest of the body. Now, each of the different sides of the heart is divided into two chambers, the atria and the ventricles. Now, atria is the plural of the word atrium, and ventricles is the plural of the word ventricle, which is obvious. So these are called chambers. Each side of your heart has an atrium and a ventricle. So you have a left atrium and a left ventricle, and a right atrium and a right ventricle. The atria, their purpose is they're kind of like a collecting area. So when blood is going into the heart, when it's waiting to be pumped out, it goes into the atrium. It's kind of just this area you enter the heart in. And if you think of fancy hotels or certain buildings, they actually have a room called an atrium. It often has like glass ceilings and plants growing in it, and they're usually very nice. That's kind of like that main room. So once you go in, before you go to your hotel room or wherever it is you're going, you enter into this atrium, and then you will go to wherever it is you need to go. It's the same way in the heart. The blood enters into the atria, and then the ventricles will pump. So the ventricles send it off to the lungs or the rest of the body. So humans have what is called a four-chambered heart. Different animals have different numbers of chambers of their hearts. Like some have just one atrium and one ventricle. But we have four. We have the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, and the left ventricle. And we're going to talk about what all of these do here. Actually, let's talk about what they do right now. I have here a diagram of the human heart. And this is a pretty simplified diagram. Although it might look complex right now if you're not familiar with what you're looking at. So there are two sides, the right side and the left side. Now the right side, counterintuitively, is on our left. So where I am hovering right here, this is the right side of the heart. And the reason we call that the right side is because we're looking at the heart as if we're standing in front of a person and using some sort of X-ray vision and looking right into them to see their heart. And so it's on that person's right side, and it's on our left as we look at it. And so the left side of the heart is over here then. Now, when you see diagrams of blood vessels and hearts and anything that involves blood, you often see two colors. You see red and you see blue. Red is usually used to symbolize that you have oxygenated blood. So that is blood that has oxygen in it. It's oxygen rich is another way of saying it. And blue is deoxygenated, or oxygen poor blood. So after you breathe in and your blood gets all that oxygen in it, it's usually called oxygen rich, and it has the oxygen in it. It goes to the cells, and then it leaves the oxygen in the cells, and it becomes oxygen poor then, and then you'll see it symbolized with blue. So I'm going to do that here in the heart to help you see what's going on. So we're going to start with blood that's coming from the body. So let's say your blood just got back from your hand, and then it goes to your heart. It is oxygen poor blood at that time, so it's going to be blue. And it's going to come in right here. It's going to come into the right atrium. And this right here is the right atrium. It's this little chamber that kind of holds the blood until it's ready to be pumped out by the ventricle. So that's your right atrium right there. From there, it'll flow through this valve into the right ventricle. And this whole space right in here is the right ventricle. So it comes in here. And then the ventricle is actually the pump. So your heart is a very muscular organ. Remember, one of the 3 types of muscle tissue we talked about was cardiac muscle, and that is the muscle that is found in the heart. So the walls of these ventricles here are very muscular, and they will squeeze together, and that'll pump the blood out. Kind of like if you're ever in a pool and you squeeze your hands together and you pump the water out. It works very similarly. So that oxygen poor blood is going to come up and come through these blood vessels right here, and notice how it splits left and right. So it kind of goes through this little loop right here, and some of it will go left, some of it will go right, and it is traveling to the lungs. So the lungs are going to be on either side of the heart here. At the lungs, the blood will pick up oxygen and then come back towards the heart. And so it's going to be red now because it has oxygen in it. It is oxygen rich. It's going to come back through these little blood vessels here and enter into this, which is the left atrium. From the left atrium, it'll go through this valve into the left ventricle, and the left ventricle is very strong because it has to pump to the rest of the body. So if you get a chance to do a heart dissection, which based on our schedule, I don't know if you'll be able to this year or not, we'll see how things play out. But if you get to do it, you actually get to feel the muscular wall of the left ventricle is much stronger than that of the right ventricle. But anyways, that ventricle will then contract, and it'll squeeze the blood up through this hole, and it'll go out the aorta, which is the big main artery in your body. It'll go up, and it'll also come down here as well, if you can see that. So it'll go kind of up towards your head and arms, and then down towards your legs and, I guess, digestive system. So that is how blood moves through the heart. Let me just do that in fast motion here for you again. So it'll come into the right atrium, go into the right ventricle, get pumped out to the lungs. It goes in 2 directions. It gets oxygenated at the lungs, comes back into the left atrium, then it goes to the left ventricle, and then out to the rest of the body. And that is how your heart works.